Sometimes it don't take much. Just the right smell in the kitchen or sound floating in through the window. This morning, I pulled out an old recipe card, and before I knew it, I was up to my elbows in flour, humming a tune I hadn't thought about in 50 years. You are my sunshine. Land sakes alive, I hadn't sung that since Tommy used to whistle it down by the barn. The cinnamon in that apple pie, it just took me right back to the summer of 1954. It's funny, isn't it? How one quiet morning can carry a whole lifetime on its back. That pie's still baking now, the kitchen smells like home, and I swear if I close my eyes, I can just about see him leaning against that fence, toothpick between his lips, sleeves rolled up, looking at me like I was the only thing God ever got right. Tommy Ray Carter. Bless his soul. Now, I ain't one to talk your ear off about young love, Lord knows folks got enough of their own troubles. But there's a little thing I've been keeping close for more years than I care to count. And I don't know why, maybe 'cause I'm getting older, maybe 'cause the world moves too fast these days, but lately I've been feeling like it's time to tell it. You see, there was a day, no, not just a day, an evening, warm and gold, the way them Appalachian summers always were, the kind that makes the hills glow like honey just before the sun drops behind em. I was 17. Wore a dress I'd stitched from a flour sack, little blue flowers on it. My mama had curled my hair with rags the night before. I felt pretty in that quiet kind of way. That was the evening Tommy gave me the nut. Now I know how that sounds. What in heaven's name is she talking about, a nut? But hold on, darlin'. This wasn't just any nut. And he wasn't just any boy. Back in those days we didn't have much. Truth be told, we didn't have a pot to pee in. Tommy worked long hours at the sawmill, barely brought home enough to cover his daddy's medicine and a sack of cornmeal. And still he found a way to give me something more precious than gold. He couldn't buy me a ring, but he gave me his heart in a walnut shell, opened it like a little treasure chest and carved me the tiniest wooden heart you ever did see. Said, I can't buy you gold, but I give you my heart. Now tell me, child, what kind of 17-year-old girl's supposed to forget a thing like that? I ain't forgot it. Not after all these years. I still got it, in fact right here in this old box I keep by the bed. The walnut's a little cracked now, but that heart's still holdin', just like mine. And maybe that's why I'm tellin' this now. 'Cause folks these days, you young folks wouldn't understand. You think love's in the diamonds or the big weddings or the fancy pictures on the television. But I'm here to tell you, sometimes the biggest love you'll ever get fits right inside a nut. So if you've got a minute, just one little minute, let me take you back to the bench by the white church on a Sunday evening in June. The smell of jasmine in the air, the choir singing soft through the open windows, and a shy boy with nothing but a carved heart and a dream, because that's how it started. And Lord have mercy, that moment changed everything. When I think back to those days, the summer of 54, and even before, it's like stepping into a whole other world. Appalachian Mountains, my home sweet home, tucked away in a little valley in West Virginia. The kind of place where everybody knows your name, and if you don't show up at church on Sunday, folks notice. The roads were just gravel, dusty and uneven, and you'd hear the mailman's whistle 3 times a week. That was when you knew to be ready for letters, or maybe a parcel from a far-off relative. But mostly it was the smell of the earth after a rain, and the scent of bread baking that filled the air. I was just a girl then, Evelyn Pearl McCoy, or Evie as everyone called me. 17 going on 18, standing on the edge of everything. I wasn't much to look at, with my hair pinned back with ragged ribbons and my dresses stitched out of whatever cloth mama could find. We didn't have much money, Lord have mercy, no. But what we had was a rhythm, a way of life that made you feel like you belonged to the hills themselves. Days started early with rooster crowing and the sun spilling gold through the curtains. I'd help Mama in the kitchen, learning how to bake cornbread and tend the garden while Daddy worked down at the mill or fixed the fence. Evenings were for sitting on the porch swing, watching the fireflies flicker as the cicadas sang their endless song. You young folks wouldn't understand the slow pace of it all. There weren't no cars buzzing down the lane every minute, and television was a strange word. We made do with what we had. Radio was our window to the world, and Sunday church brought the whole community together. That's where we learned about kindness, about forgiveness, and about holding on to hope when times got tough. I had dreams then, just like any young girl. Not the kind you see in movies or hear in the songs on the radio. No, my dreams were quieter. I believed in simple things, that good people would be rewarded, that the world wasn't as harsh as it sometimes seemed. I believed that kindness mattered most, and that if you gave love freely, it would come back to you. Maybe it was naive, maybe it was hopeful, but I held on to that with all my heart. Tommy was part of that world too. You see, he wasn't just some boy with a toothpick in his mouth and patched up shirts. He was a dreamer, a gentle soul who knew hard work like the back of his hand. His family wasn't rich, far from it. His daddy came back from the war with scars that never fully healed, and Tommy carried the weight of that on his young shoulders. Yet, despite all that, he carried a spark, a heart of gold, bless his soul. He had a smile that could light up the darkest day, and eyes that told stories without words. Back then, everything felt possible even when the world said otherwise. We didn't have fancy dances or big town fairs. Our celebrations were simple: a picnic under the shade of an old oak tree, a summer church social, or a walk down the dirt road just to watch the sunset splash colors across the sky. Life was slow, but it was rich in ways money couldn't buy. I remember thinking more than anything that love was about being there. Not about grand gestures or shiny things, but about quiet moments shared on a porch swing, hands held tight against the cool mountain air. I didn't know then that those small moments would shape the rest of my life. That a boy who couldn't buy me a ring would give me something far more precious. A promise carved in a little wooden heart, hidden inside a cracked walnut. That's the world I came from, where hearts were honest and dreams were wrapped in the warmth of a summer's evening. And as much as times have changed, I hold on to those memories like they're a precious thread, woven through the fabric of my life. Because, child, that's where it all began. I remember it clear as a bell. That day when Tommy Carter showed up in my life like a breeze stirring the summer leaves. It wasn't anything grand or fancy. No dramatic music playing behind us. Just a slow walk down the dusty road near the church. He was older than me by a couple years, 19 while I was just 17, but he had that quiet sort of confidence that made you want to listen when he spoke. You know, not loud or boastful, but steady, like the river that keeps on flowing, even when the storms come through. That day, the sun was high and hot. The sky a perfect blue stretched out over the Appalachian hills. I was sitting on the old wooden bench by the church, waiting for Sunday service to start, fiddling with the hem of my dress stitched from that worn flour sack. Mama was inside helping with the choir, and Daddy was talking with the men about the upcoming barn raising. Life was simple, just the usual hum of small-town Sunday. But then there he was, Tommy, walking down the path with that toothpick between his teeth, his shirt sleeves rolled up, patched at the elbows. He had that shy smile that made my heart skip a beat, though I didn't quite understand it at the time. I didn't know why my chest tightened, or why my hands suddenly felt cold even in the summer heat. I just knew something inside me stirred. Something new, something gentle but powerful all at once. It was like the first time you hear a song and it sticks with you, even when you try to forget. I was young, sure, and maybe a bit naive, but even then I could tell that moment was different. Tommy didn't say much at first. He tipped his hat, nodded a little shy, and sat down beside me on that bench. We didn't speak much, but the way he looked at me, with those kind eyes, made me feel like I mattered more than I ever had before. That was the beginning of something I couldn't quite name. And Lord have mercy, I wasn't prepared for the way it would change everything. But it wasn't just Tommy who came into my life that day. That Sunday brought more than just a quiet boy with a wooden heart. My daddy, bless him, was watching from the doorway, arms crossed tight like he was bracing for a storm. You see, he didn't think much of Tommy, called him a dreamer with no money, no future. Said he was no good for a girl like me. That only made my heart ache more. Because deep down I believed there was something good in Tommy, something worth holding on to. I also remember Mama, with her gentle hands and quiet smile, telling me to be patient, that love isn't always loud and flashy. And my little sister, always peek in from behind the curtains, curious about the boy who made me blush like a schoolgirl. That day, all those pieces came together, the people I loved, the hopes I held, and the boy who would become my whole world. I didn't understand it fully then. Couldn't have really. But I felt it in my bones that life was about to take a turn and I was standing on the edge of something big. I didn't know how or when, but I knew this quiet boy with patched clothes and a toothpick smile was gonna teach me about love in a way no one else ever had. And if I'm being honest, I was scared. Scared of what my daddy would say, scared of the future, scared of letting my heart get too full. But I also felt a flicker of hope, a tiny light that told me maybe, just maybe, love didn't need money or fancy things to survive. Maybe it was enough to have a heart that cared enough to give itself away. That's what I want you to remember, darling. Sometimes the most important moments come soft and quiet, like a whisper on the wind. And if you listen close, you might just hear your own heart speaking back. Well, now, if you think love's all sunshine and sweet songs, bless your heart, you haven't heard my story right yet. 'Cause just when I thought the world was opening up and maybe, just maybe, I could hold on to something real, the wind shifted, and with them came trouble I wasn't ready for. You see, Tommy and me, we weren't just two young folks falling in love in the quiet hills of West Virginia. No sir, we had mountains to climb bigger than those Appalachian peaks. It started slow at first. Daddy, bless his stubborn heart, never liked Tommy. Said he was no spring chicken with his patched up shirts and sawmill hands. Told me straight out, Evie, you deserve better. But it wasn't just Daddy, the whole town had their eyes on us. Whispers here and there about the boy who didn't have a dime to his name, the girl who was supposed to marry up, not down. That kind of talk cuts deep, even when you try to shrug it off. And I tried, Lord, I tried. Inside, my heart was a tangled mess. I loved Tommy, that much was true. But I also felt the weight of every glance, every whisper. I felt scared, like I was standing on a cliff, looking down into a fog I couldn't see through. There were days when I'd sit alone on that porch swing, trying to quiet the fear knot in my belly. Was I wrong to want something so simple as love? Was I foolish to believe in dreams when reality was so harsh? I was ashamed too. Ashamed for wanting something my family didn't approve of. Ashamed for feeling weak when all I wanted was to be strong. Mama, she was gentle but firm. She'd hold my hand and say, Evie, love ain't always easy, but it's worth fighting for. She saw the good in Tommy, even if Daddy couldn't. That gave me hope, but it wasn't enough to quiet the storm inside. Because love in those days came with a price, and sometimes that price was the very people you thought you could count on. One day there was a letter. A plain envelope with Daddy's stern handwriting. Inside, a warning: if I kept seeing Tommy, there'd be no support from the family. No help with the farm, no backing in town. I remember folding that letter over and over, tears blurring the words, feeling like my whole world was teetering on the edge of a knife. Tommy, he never pushed me. He understood the burden I carried, and he carried his own too. I saw it in the way he'd look out over the hills, silent and weighed down by the future. But he promised me with that steady voice, Evie, one day, I'll buy you a ring. And it'll be worth waiting for. And I believed him. I had to. But Lord, it wasn't easy. The town's judgment, Daddy's disappointment, the fear that maybe we weren't meant to be together, all that made me question myself. Was I strong enough? Was our love strong enough? The nights I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, I whispered prayers I'd never said out loud before. Prayers for courage, for hope, for a way through the dark. That's when I learned something important. Sometimes love ain't about fancy things or easy days. Sometimes love is holding on when everything inside you screams to let go. Sometimes love is quiet bravery, the kind that doesn't get told in stories but lives in the beating of two hearts who refuse to give up. And darling, if you ever find yourself caught between what your heart wants and what the world expects, remember this: you're not alone. I was there. I felt that fear and that shame. But I also found a courage I didn't know I had. Because love, real love, will ask you to fight. And sometimes it asks you to keep on fighting long after the sun's gone down. I can still remember that day like it happened just yesterday. The sun was shining, bright and hot over those Appalachian hills, but inside me it felt like the whole world had gone cold and silent. I swear, for a moment time itself stopped, like the clock on the mantelpiece just froze in place, holding its breath along with me. It was the kind of moment that no one forgets, the kind that changes everything you thought you knew about yourself and the world around you. Tommy had gone off to the mill early that morning like any other day. and I was left alone with the soft creak of the rocking chair and the distant hum of cicadas. I was mending a patch on my dress, trying to keep my hands busy, when I heard the truck rumbling up the gravel road. But it wasn't Tommy's old pickup. No, this was something different, heavy, urgent. And when Daddy stepped inside the house, his face was pale and tight, his eyes not quite meeting mine. I just knew, something was wrong. He sat me down, slow and steady, but I could feel the storm behind his words before he even spoke. "Evie," he said, voice low and breaking, "Tommy's been hurt at the mill. It's bad." My heart dropped straight through my chest. I couldn't breathe. I felt like the floor gave way beneath me. All those years of hope, all those promises he'd made with that shy smile, suddenly seemed so fragile, so far away. I ran to the mill, the dust kicking up around my feet, but when I got there, everything was chaos. Men whispering, mothers crying, and Tommy lying there, broken but alive. The doctor said he'd pull through, but things would never be the same. His hands, his strong, hard-working hands, might never work like they used to. The thought was unbearable. I remember sitting by his bedside, holding his hand, feeling tears burn my cheeks. He looked at me, that steady gaze still there, but I could see the fear behind it. The fear of losing everything, his strength, his future. The dream we'd both held onto so tightly. In that moment, I realized something I hadn't faced before. Love, real love, isn't just about the good days, the easy smiles. It's about standing strong when the world turns upside down. It's about holding on when hope feels like it's slipping through your fingers like sand. I lost more than just Tommy's health that day. I lost the innocence of believing that love was enough to conquer all. I felt the weight of the hard road ahead pressing down on us like the heavy Appalachian sky before a storm. And yet, somewhere deep inside, a small, fierce spark kept burning, the same spark that said, "We'll get through this together." That night, I whispered a prayer, not just for Tommy but for me too. For the courage to face whatever came next. For the strength to keep loving even when love didn't look like I thought it would. Because sometimes, darling, life don't go the way you plan. Sometimes the hardest moments are the ones that teach you the most about who you really are. And that day when time stood still, was the day I found out just how strong my heart could be. After that day, the world didn't look the same no more. It's like the colors faded and everything got quieter. Too quiet sometimes, like the kind of silence that presses in on you from all sides. I'd sit by the window for hours, watching the hills roll by under that endless Appalachian sky, and wondering how things could have changed so much, so fast. It felt like I was living in a different place. One where the laughter had gone missing and the simple joys I used to know seemed just out of reach. Tommy was there, yes, but he wasn't the same. The injury at the mill left its mark in more ways than one. His hands, once strong and steady, trembled a bit when he reached out to hold mine. And his smile, well, it came slower, softer, like he was carrying a weight I couldn't see. I could tell he was scared too, but neither of us said much about it. Sometimes I'd catch him staring out toward the mountains, lost in thought, and I'd wonder what kind of future he saw there. For me, the hardest part was the quiet loneliness that settled in after the noise of crisis faded. I'd been so busy holding on, fighting for hope, that when the dust finally settled, I felt a hollowness I hadn't expected. It was like losing a part of myself, that bright-eyed girl who believed love could move mountains and fix anything. I didn't know who I was anymore, not really. And some days I wasn't sure if I wanted to find out. I kept busy, of course, helping with the farm, tending to the garden, making sure the house still felt like home. But inside there was this ache, a quiet question hanging heavy in the air. Was this all there was? A life of hard work, quiet disappointment, and dreams tucked away like forgotten letters in a drawer? I struggled with my faith too. I'd always believed that if you were good and kind, the world would be good back to you. But after what we'd been through, I wasn't so sure anymore. Sometimes I found myself whispering prayers that felt more like pleadings. Why us? Why now? And I reckon those questions echoed through the night, unanswered. But even in that dark, lonely place, something inside me held on. Maybe it was stubbornness, or maybe it was love, the kind of love that doesn't give up, even when the road's rough and the nights are long. I started to see that maybe life wasn't about waiting for things to get easy, but about finding the strength to keep going anyway. I thought a lot about that little walnut with the wooden heart Tommy gave me. It was cracked and worn, but it was still there, still holding together, even after everything. And somehow that nut reminded me of us. Fragile, yes, but strong enough to survive. Holding on even when the world tried to pull us apart. Those days taught me that life isn't always about the big moments or the loud celebrations. Sometimes it's about the quiet ones, the ones filled with hope and pain all mixed together. The ones where you find yourself again, piece by piece. So I kept on. I learned to breathe through the hard times, to lean on the love that was still there, even if it looked different than I'd imagined. And little by little, the light came back. Not the blinding kind, but the soft, steady glow that comes from knowing you've made it through the storm. After months of feeling lost in that heavy silence, something shifted. It wasn't sudden or dramatic like in the stories, no fireworks or grand announcements. It was more like a soft whisper in the back of my mind, a tiny spark flickering to life after a long, dark winter. I can't say exactly what brought it on. Maybe it was the way the sun caught the leaves outside my window one morning, or the sound of a bird singing just right. But whatever it was, that little spark grew into a flicker of hope I hadn't felt in a long time. You see, sometimes when life knocks you down, it takes a while before you find the strength to get back up. And that's okay. I learned that it's alright to be gentle with yourself, to take small steps, one slow breath at a time. For me, that step came on a quiet afternoon when I decided to help Mrs. Harper down the road with her garden. She was an old widow like me, but with a spirit that never quite dimmed. We spent the day pulling weeds and planting new seeds, and somehow that simple act of working together stirred something deep inside me. Helping her reminded me that life was still growing, even when it felt like everything was wilting away. And as the sun dipped low behind the mountains, painting the sky with shades of pink and gold, I felt a soft warmth spread through my chest. It was hope, shy and tender but real. Like the first bloom of spring after a long winter freeze. That moment gave me the courage to look at my own life a little differently. I began to see that even with all the pain and loss, there was still room for joy, for laughter, for new dreams, even if they looked different than the ones I'd held before. I started sitting on the porch again, not just to watch the world go by, but to think about what I wanted next. Maybe not grand adventures, but simple pleasures, a home filled with love, children's laughter, a garden to tend, a husband's hand to hold. Tommy was still there, healed but changed, and though things weren't perfect, we found a new rhythm. We learned to cherish the small victories, a shared smile, a good meal, the quiet comfort of being together. That was enough. More than enough. I realized then that sometimes life doesn't give you the storybook ending you dreamed of, but it does give you chances. Second chances. And sometimes all you need to do is open your heart a little wider to see them. So I took that chance. I began to dream again, slowly and carefully, like planting a seed in good soil. I made a promise to myself to keep holding on to love, not just the kind that sparkles and shines, but the kind that grows steady and strong through every season. And you know what, darling? That kind of love is the kind that lasts a lifetime. There came a time, sweet child, when I had to look myself right in the mirror and face a truth I'd been carrying in my heart for far too long. I'd held on to pain, to hurt, to the weight of what could have been and what wasn't. I'd nursed my sorrows like a dear friend, thinking maybe that was the way to keep Tommy and those memories alive. But Lord, that kind of holding on it only chains you to the past, and it steals the breath right out of your lungs. One quiet evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in shades of fire, I sat on the porch swing, that old wooden thing creaking beneath me, and I took out that little walnut with the heart inside, the very one Tommy gave me all those years ago. It was cracked and worn, a bit like me, but still whole in its own way. I ran my fingers over it and felt the memories rush back, the hopes, the struggles, the love. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. I realized that while the past shaped me, it didn't have to define me. I could choose to carry the love and lessons forward, but leave behind the pain and regret that weighed me down. I didn't have to live a life shadowed by what was lost. I whispered to myself, Evie, it's time. Time to let go. So I did something I hadn't dared to do before. I forgave. Forgave the hard times, the broken promises, even the hurt that lingered like a cold wind. I forgave Daddy for his doubts, and I forgave myself for the times I let fear hold me back. That night, I made a promise not to live perfect, but to live free. To embrace the days I had, the love I still held, and the family we built from those pieces of hope and heartache. I knew the road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but I also knew that carrying bitterness would only make it harder to walk. So I chose life. Chose joy in the simple things, the laughter of my children, the warmth of a good meal shared with loved ones, the quiet beauty of a summer breeze. I chose to honor Tommy's heart by living fully with all the courage and kindness he believed in. It wasn't a sudden miracle or some grand revelation. It was quiet, gentle, like the turning of a page in a well-loved book. And with that choice, I felt lighter, like a weight had been lifted, and the future stretched out before me, wide and welcoming. I tell you, darling, sometimes the hardest thing to do is to let go. But when you do, you open your heart to all the good waiting on the other side. So here I am, after all these years, holding that little walnut close, not as a chain, but as a symbol. A reminder that love can survive cracks and storms, that we can heal and grow, and that every day is a chance to choose hope again. I chose to live. Without regrets. Without holding on to what couldn't be changed. Just moving forward, one breath at a time. You know, as the years have folded over me like the gentle hills of my home, I've had plenty of time to think about all that's happened, the loves, the losses, the quiet moments that shaped a lifetime. And if there's one thing I've come to understand, it's this: life ain't about waiting for the perfect moment or the shiny things you think will make you whole. No, child, it's about learning to hold what you've got and finding the beauty in the everyday. Back when Tommy carved that tiny heart inside a walnut shell, I was just a young girl with big dreams and a hopeful heart. I thought love meant grand gestures, big promises, maybe even a ring sparkling in the sun. But life, well, it had its own plans. It taught me that love, real love, is quieter, humbler, but no less powerful. It's in the way two people keep showing up for each other, even when the road's rough. It's in the little things, a shared glance, a steady hand, a promise kept even without words. I've come to see that waiting, hoping for things to be different, can sometimes keep us from living fully. Waiting for the right time, the right person, the right sign. But time? It keeps moving whether we're ready or not. And love? It's often found not in the grand but in the simple imperfect moments. Maybe, just maybe, it's time for all of us to stop waiting for life to be perfect before we start living it. To stop holding on to what's lost and start embracing what's here. Because the heart, bless its stubbornness, has an incredible way of healing and growing stronger when we give it the chance. I want you to remember, darling, that love isn't measured by diamonds or gold, but by the weight it carries in your soul. And sometimes that love comes wrapped in the smallest, most unexpected packages, like a cracked walnut with a carved wooden heart inside. If there's a message I can leave with you today, it's this: don't wait for love to look the way you think it should. Don't wait for the perfect moment to open your heart. The moment is now. The love is here. And it's enough. So maybe it's time for you too to stop waiting. To start living. To hold close the love you have and to give yourself permission to find joy in the quiet, everyday miracles. Because if there's one thing life's taught me, it's that sometimes the smallest hearts carry the biggest love. Well, here we are, darling, at the end of this little journey I've been sharing with you. It's funny how a story that started so many years ago can still feel like it's living right here in my heart, every day. That old walnut with the carved heart. It's more than just a keepsake, it's a reminder that love isn't something you put in a box or lock away in the past. No, love is alive. It breathes. It moves with us even when we think it's quiet. You see, this story isn't just about a boy who couldn't buy a ring and a girl who treasured a simple gift. It's about the way love finds us in unexpected ways and how it stays with us, even when the years pass and the world changes around us. It's about hope, about holding on, about the little things that mean the most. And I want you to know this story isn't just mine. It's yours too, and maybe someone you love. Because every one of us has a heart that's carried dreams, pain, joy, and quiet moments of wonder. Maybe it's a love you're holding on to, or one you're still searching for. Whatever it is, I hope you'll carry it gently. Now I've been thinking, and I want to ask you something that's been on my mind for a long time. Do you believe true love ever really goes away? Do you think it can come back around again and again, like the changing seasons or the steady turn of the earth? Because sometimes late at night when the house is still and the world feels soft and quiet, I swear I can feel Tommy's spirit near, like he's still here, watchin' over me, rememberin' that little heart he carved inside that walnut. And maybe, just maybe, that's what love is, not something you lose, but something that keeps on comin' back to you in the small things, the memories, the whispers of the past that shape our tomorrows. So I leave you with this, my dear friend. How do you know when love is real? And if it is, do you believe it's meant to return? Think on that for a while. Write me your thoughts, your stories, your hopes. Because in sharing we find connection, and in connection we find the heart of what it means to be human. Thank you for listening to my story. May your heart always have a place to call home, and may you find the courage to love fiercely, tenderly, and without regret. And sometimes when the wind rustles through the trees just right, I smile and whisper to the night, "Land sakes alive, Tommy, I reckon you're still here after all."